Hello, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome to the Daily Medicine Transmission. It's been a couple of days. Let's exit out of that studio mode and go right to the full frame. It makes no difference to you whatsoever. It's just what I'm seeing. So welcome. Welcome back. If you're a subscriber, supporter of this channel, it's been a couple of days. I've been off the grid for a couple of days, feet firmly planted on the ground, at least part of the time. And now I'm back and, changing some things up. And that's really goes along with the theme of today's transmission, because it is time for some house cleaning. And when would it be a better time to house clean other than a waxing Virgo moon, right? Get our shit in order and clean out all of the pests. So I am trying something different, though. I'm moving the transmissions and the broadcast to later in the morning or in the day, so to encourage more interaction. Not everybody gets up at 5:30 on the West Coast, so I got some good feedback that the live transmission, which makes a lot of sense, and I'm sure that many of us can relate to this, and with a lot of different things that we interact with, the live transmission tends to carry the energy transmission with it a lot more effectively. It's not necessary with the recording, but I also know this to be my experience as well with other channels that I listen to, other people who are presenting information or having a direct teaching or transmission. In the live experience, there is something about that connection that's important. So I want to encourage it and facilitate it more. So we're going to start pushing the lives back a little bit later in the morning in order to encourage that. So we're just going to get right into it because there's a lot to talk about. How was the weekend? And not even just the weekend, but this whole process leading up to this moment now where the moon is in Virgo, and thankfully. And it does mean in some ways that we are getting down to brass tacks here, getting down to business within ourselves, which is important because we really do need to do this and clear out the pests. If we remember the solar eclipse, and the energy associated with the solar eclipse, the need for the assimilation of the multitude of information and content that we can consume, engage with, think about, talk about, process that data. It's nothing, if it's not that it's nothing, but what is it good for unless we figure out how to assimilate it properly? And part of that process now with a moon in Virgo, right? The counterpart to the polarity of Mercury, right? Gemini and Virgo. Sorry, that was a huge distraction. I can't stand that when they just pop up on you. I gotta turn off notifications. So anyway, I'm still getting back into the swing of how I'm, into my channel as well right now in my transmissions, because I have been in a completely different space for the last couple of days, a good space. And boy, oh boy, those Syrian activations were so intense. I don't know how it's going with you, but I'd be curious to hear how people experienced this past weekend. So because it was intense, and I'll share a little bit more as we go through the process. But now that the moon is in Virgo, the counterpart to Mercury's rulership, rules in Gemini, rules Virgo, we've had access to all of this potential information and data and communication and experience, and the signal that our nervous system sends as a result of its functioning, right? The nervous system is the third house, and it's really how Gemini operates, is within the nervous system. Now we have the moon in Virgo. It's time to analyze it, right? And part of analysis is putting things where they belong. Part of analysis is getting rid of what is extraneous and is not part of the overall picture, right? Not every variable is going to factor into this analysis, and not all data, for as much as it is in itself relevant, is going to necessarily be part of the understanding eventually, or at least we will analyze where it belongs. And sometimes it belongs out of our system. And part of assimilation is having a healthy digestion and being able to, think about put that under your cap for just a minute. Digestion and assimilation and metabolism, because we're going to come back around to that. That was a connection that had not been made until right now. So it's time to do some house cleaning. Clear out the pests, clear out the unnecessary junk, put things where they belong, in order to really analyze the situation and to master ourselves. The Virgo energy is the discipline that we exercise in our routines and our behaviors and actions. It's about healing and the healing process. It is about getting our shit together, and becoming the person that we came here to be. And Virgo is the time of year in a growing cycle where the plant is using the root power to draw in nutrients and water into the plant in order to support the fruit. Not so much the vegetative growth. That's more of a Cancer Leo time. Well, really Leo, because that's the time where we get the most sun, the most solar activity, the flowers bloom, the vegetative growth is strong, pollination happens. Now it's time to take care of the fruit that bears the seed, and the plant's whole hormonal structure changes at Virgo. So, and everything is going on under the surface. It's about what is happening underneath in the darkness, in the surface. How do we, again, assimilate the things that we need from the environment around us into us in order to nourish our soul, our spirit, whatever it is, in fact, that we are growing, either literal or energetic. And it doesn't really matter, does it? It's all energetic. So this is a great time to put some actions into place that, mimic or imitate or resonate with the idea of analyzing, organizing, and cleaning, especially on a psychic level. So, man, the trolls are out in full effect, of course, and that's a big part of it as well. And just the brain drain on, circular arguments and rabbit holes that go nowhere, and not really being able to hone in on the specifics is a big part of how we can manage the eclipse energy as it unfolds over the next 6 months, because that's going to really set the tone. It set the tone for the next 6 months, which is our challenge to assimilate everything that is going to be dumped in some ways or presented to us in terms of information. So I think it's important that we just get right into the chart. We see what's going on today, and start to pull through the messages. And there's some very specific ones that are going to come up. So I hope everyone's doing well and taking good care of themselves. Like I said, that Syrian activation was intense. We had Saturn square Uranus on Monday the 14th. Monday the 14th, which was Flag Day, and are, really challenging our ability to be revitalized by a return to the natural rhythm. And again, this is a good way to reset ourselves so that we can, in fact, have strong metabolism, which is what allows us to assimilate, and to have a direct connection to the rhythm of nature, in order to support this process. All right, let me bring this up. There we go. Here's today's chart. So the real challenge with Saturn and Uranus, for all the things that it could represent in terms of resources and currency and revolution and innovation, because of Saturn in Aquarius, really it's challenging us to not only very directly interact with the narrow path of our own evolution in a very physical, material, palpable way, but at the same time, in that square to Uranus, challenging our ability to transcend that into God, I don't want to say bypass, because but it's not even about bypass. It's simultaneously being able to awaken and push outside of the normal boundaries by returning back to nature. We change and we grow with these squares, and this is a big one, right? It's going to happen again. And it happened before. And so how this interacts with your life, it really depends on your own chart for the most part. So we're coming off of this square still, as you can see. It's still reverberating. And then on top of that, the Sirian activations with the moon in Cancer. Venus was in a conjunction with Sirius over the weekend, and they were really intense. And boundaries are coming up so strongly. Energetic boundaries is the Cancerian aspect. And with Venus there still, and of course, moving through her time here, really bringing this idea of emotional boundaries into a very resource and tangible reality for us, right? Venus is our relationships. She represents what we pull towards us to bring us comfort and joy and harmony and beauty, right? She represents beauty. She represents the natural world and the beautiful rhythm of all of that. And with her transit through Cancer, especially when she was in a conjunction with fixed star Sirius and activating all these Sirian star seed codes, basically, it was along with Saturn and Uranus in a conjunction, in that square. I think that it really tested our emotional boundaries around that stuff. And thankfully Venus, because it was making it so palpable and so obvious in our relationships in our material world, I think that it really, for as intense as it was, it brought some things right to the surface to be sensed by us in these types of situations, in relationships and projects and material resources. And again, it's one thing, Cancer is about emotional boundaries, and we can't really create something unique and out of the fracture that is, mistranslated through Gemini, right? The duality is a necessary precursor to unification. You don't get unification without the experience of separation and duality. So, but you need a space in which to create within, and that is the Cancerian archetype, and that is the emotional boundaries, the energetic boundaries, the intuitive, psychic, astral boundaries that Cancer represents. It made it very real, and also gave us a really good indication, I think, of how to recalibrate ourselves around this. Because again, we can't assimilate if we don't have strong boundaries in which to hold the water of our own emotions. So anyway, now that we have Mars in Leo, you can really feel people are getting really, they're getting pretty bold, aren't they? They're getting pretty bold. They're pretty fiery, impulsive, really sure and confident, which is great, which is really good on a lot of levels, and can be used so efficiently right now. But at the same time, if it's not very well aspect to your chart, or you're just really unconscious of these energies and they just pull you around, this can be very, a hot storm, impulsive, and in some ways, just like, I wouldn't necessarily say reckless, but more of just really on the brink of overconfidence, right? So it all can go one way or the other. It's really our choice how we're going to interact with this energy. But I will say, Mars in Leo now, it's really turned on, and we are that masculine warrior is feeling very confident, very sovereign, and is in this rebirth process. And the divine masculine in the sign of Leo, this is the Kundalini being activated by the male masculine energy, the warrior energy. It's got momentum behind it and wants to move. And so just be aware that we will want to be acting on things and acting out of our own passion and expression. So we have to balance a lot of other things out in order to utilize this energy at our highest good, right? Which is Virgo. Honestly, being our highest good is reflected by the Virgo energy. So let's talk about today, shall we? We have our moon in Virgo. Let's make sure that everything is current. So as you can see, there was an opposition with Jupiter earlier this morning, and we have Mercury retrograde here still in Gemini, soon going to start slowing down to go direct. And is in a conjunction with fixed star Rigel. Well, we've gone over this, so you can, there's still Orion starseed territory. I'm pretty sure the Orion starseed nature is doing just fine right now, just fine with some of this energy. This is important to, if you have this in your, if you have Orion starseed connections, this is a really good way. This is a really good place to connect to in order to really successfully navigate this territory just in general right now, for the sun and Mercury retrograde specifically, because it's very trickster-like with Mercury retrograde right now. And so we have to be able to not take things too personally and learn from them rather than, and get better at our skill set by them rather than getting pulled into the emotional disruption that it can cause, because that's, our emotions are what create our thoughts, and then the thoughts create things, right? So it's important that we're aware of that. So this opposition with Jupiter, right, is going on today. And so Jupiter's going to go retrograde on the summer solstice, which is on Father's Day, actually, the 20th right now, or Father's Day this year. And so the solstice, the sun moves into Cancer on Father's Day. That's very interesting. Cancer is the mother archetype. So I find that fascinating in and of itself. But, Jupiter is going to station retrograde at this degree. It's in this degree about a petrified forest, right? The archetypal fragments of civilization. And we talk about Pisces. This is the collection of everything that has transpired, all of the karma, all of the experiences emotionally. They all come together into this ocean of consciousness. Virgo is more about the individual coming to terms with themselves, right? To experience everything that has transpired on an individual level so far, and really taking a look at one's character and making the necessary adjustments in order to really utilize what is under the surface to grow and to evolve. So in the moon in opposition to Jupiter, that is about to go retrograde just in a matter of days, really, in this position, there's a lot of strength within. And Jupiter, for as benefic and wonderful it is, and the expansion that it's providing, it's a little bit, we're really accessing a lot because it's the field of experience here is being expanded upon by Jupiter. So there's a lot of good luck and fortune, but it's also an endless expansion into the higher mind and belief systems and the collective values that Jupiter represents. It feels a little overwhelming. It feels like that we are now being exposed to a lot more of what has already happened that has led to, as the result of everything that has transpired so far, and looking back and being like, oh, I see that this has transpired already before, and these are the remnants. It's never lost. And so this also really brings up, for me at least, the idea that there's always a signature of everything that happens. And so Jupiter in some ways is this like expansive and really advocating for the full awareness of that. So it's a lot. And then the moon in opposition here, right? Opposition, we have this tension. We have to find this fulcrum. Virgo ultimately is about the strength within us. And the invisible, this degree is about the invisible help and protection in times of crisis, but it's two guardian angels, right? So we have this moment here where we may have felt within us in this very, very transient moment of the strength within. And it's interesting to have it be in opposition, like that tension there with Jupiter, because the moon is about going within ourselves and into that internalized landscape and the feeling, whereas Jupiter is expanding endlessly on the possibilities and the big picture. And so we can't ignore either side. So we find this middle point, and it's the middle point is to realize that there is this concept of the guardian angel. There's this strength within us that we feel in the face of all of this just kind of letting go and interfacing, directly with everything that there is out there. I know that kind of feels, I'm having a hard time actually being able to translate this transit in a non-generic way. So, but it does feel like in this moment that we can't completely rely on this protection, and that everything, we can't just like insulate ourselves. And that's really actually, that's a great transition actually, because this is where Mercury really is sitting right now, is in this degree of Gemini of insulation. And it really is addressing the idea that when you come into a new realm of experience, you kind of have to insulate yourself from everything coming at you from the outside. And we are, in fact, really insulating ourselves with Mercury in a retrograde position here. But it's in square to asteroid Vesta today, like direct square. And so, which is also in Virgo. So this insulation that we want, and, Mercury rules Virgo, it rules Gemini. There's a lot of familiarity with these symbols and the resonance that they hold, with Mercury in a square to Vesta in Virgo. And even with the moon in Virgo, there is a lot of familiarity and this ability to use the mind to organize ourselves and to adjust ourselves, to analyze ourselves, to be meticulous and detail oriented, right? That's all of those mundane qualities of Virgo. But this square to Vesta is really highlighting again that we can't completely insulate ourselves, because then we don't leave ourselves the space to get intuitive knowledge. And that's a big part of where Vesta is sitting right now, as she is really giving us the fire, our spiritual fire, that's burning at the center of each of us. She's really supporting that and being that for us in this process, okay? But that means that we have the ability to allow for the inner guidance to percolate, to like bubble to the surface. If we completely close ourselves down and don't actually do any of the work ourselves either, we're not going to get the full range of intuitive guidance that we could. And again, this is where this opposition with the moon and Jupiter, I think, is really highlighted. It's one thing to be like, I have all of the resources within me, and we do. And we absolutely do. But Jupiter is also offering something. And it's offering something that maybe is not within us directly, but it's part of the collective experience that we can actually tap into, right? But we don't want to be totally in that space either, because then we lose our core. So Mercury is in, like I said, in this retrograde, wanting to be really insulated, to really push out anything else that does not speak the same language as us. And to a certain extent, that is part of this strategy, I would say. But the square to Vesta in Virgo is challenging that and allowing us to kind of navigate how we can do that, but also allow in the guidance from our own intuition and from from the collective, right? And we all have our ways of doing this, and we all have our ways of knowing when it's our higher self and an intuitive message, as opposed to our own ego kind of, rapid fire or whatever. So these are all aspects today that are going to really help with this. Now, the moon is also going to, now right here, as we just move right to the next degree, this is where the moon is in conjunction with fixed star Thuban or Alpha Draconis, so Draco starseeds. All right, so let's talk about this. This is coming up really strongly. So fixed star Thuban was the North Star, in second and third millennium BC, right? And because of the precession of the equinoxes, right? The wobble of the Earth on the axis, that North Star actually changes position. The star itself changes as a result of where the Earth's axis is tilted towards in its wobble, right? And so now Polaris, at the end of the Big Dipper, Little Dipper. Polaris is now our North Star. But thousands of years ago, Thuban was the North Star. And in one of the Great Pyramids in the Giza Plateau, one of the passageways is actually aligned directly with Thuban, or Alpha Draconis. So we know that it's the tail of the dragon. Draco is the constellation, the dragon. And this is a moment for the Draco starseeds, or anybody that has even a resonance here of the Draco starseed traits are going to get a feeling for it. And so Thuban is the tail of the dragon, right? We are the south node of the moon, right? We're letting go. We're releasing. And we can't hold necessarily all of this energy for ourselves. We have to release what is behind us in order to move forward. And again, this is kind of about the house cleaning in some ways. We have to release where we've been so we can move forward. The dragon energy is really helpful for this. And actually, Magenta Pixie talked a lot about this in a recent video, just about the dragon energy and how you can either be hanging on, by a thread on the tail, or you can be riding the dragon and totally conscious and aware of yourself in 3D while riding this dragon. So this is a moment here, just a moment where the moon crosses this point, and we all kind of, very soon actually, where we all kind of get this, an hour or two where we're going to be, kind of connecting to this about what we have to let go of and release, and how it actually empowers us to ascend and to move forward. And the dragon energy is so full of, obviously, because it's associated with fire, but honestly, Draco is associated with the death card, which is Scorpio and water. So there's both of these elements really strongly associated. But ultimately, we have the fire in that really is what projects out here. And Vesta in Virgo, right? Vesta is the fire. It's the flame. So there's a lot of fire to be harnessed, but it has to be harnessed and directed appropriately. And the serpent energy of the Kundalini is also something that needs to be harnessed and channeled appropriately. Otherwise, it ends up being used for personal and egoic gain, and self-preservation, rather than for spiritual, truly spiritual reasons. So this is just a moment today of the moon crossing Thuban, a great opportunity to talk about the Draco starseeds. And just keep in mind, Draco starseeds, they are not the same as the reptilians themselves. If you, depending on, you can use that as much as an archetype as anything else too. The Draco starseeds came in with this resonance to show how to actually use this energy appropriately with a spiritual intent, and not for self-preservation and greed and power. So Draco starseeds are really, really important in terms of holding that resonance and being an example for this, and very powerful people. And so that's when you know where it's at in your chart and what it's activating, it can really point the direction on how to utilize this energy, how to channel it appropriately, in what areas of your life that you're going to find the most success doing that in. So when the moon, so we'll move on now back to the chart, shall we? So the moon then is going to, from there, is going to square the nodes. So we have this mutable square. Interesting that we're now talking about the nodes, because those are represented by Draco, right? The moon's nodal axis is the dragon, the head and tail of the dragon. And so we see now that the moon is going to square. So we have this mutable square with the nodes. And this is, here's the opposition and the square to both. So we have a T square with the moon and the nodes. And, we're heading in this new direction. We're letting go of where we've been, these collective paradigms that have served us at one point, and are now ready to be released so we can make new ones, right? So we can develop new ones, which is, the duality of Gemini is the precursor of this, the duality of of everything in this universe is the precursor to creating something new. It's just that we, in this moment of square, we're feeling we can, we the new unity is produced, and we see that, but it's within us, as opposed to kind of in our actual, in our bodies, in our spiritual progression, in our practices, right? With the Virgo energy and the moon in Virgo, it's within us, it's in our emotional landscape. And it's really the square here, because these aspects really all have to do with the new unity that comes out of the duality. And the square here, this T square, is that we bring it into ourselves. This is what helps with the tension of the nodes, to let go of the tail and to head towards, to embrace where we're headed, which is the new lands and the pioneering new opportunities that come from being able to engage with the realm of ideas with the duality attached to it. It's within us. The Sabian symbol is, in her baby, a mother sees her deep longing for a child answered, right? And it's the spirit's answer to the needs of whatever became individualized out of all of the Pisces, the infinite ocean of potential, which is Pisces, right? The opposite of Virgo. So now it coalesces within us and emotionally, and this challenges our mental and even that creative fire that Sagittarius represents. It's giving us the opportunity to lean into the discomfort of that mutable square, and to find a release of tension in being able to embody within us the new unity. Right? It doesn't have to be out there, or it doesn't have to be something that we intellectualize. It can be something that we feel within us as part of our own process of purification and discipline that Virgo represents. Venus comes into a sextile with Vesta. Speaking of Virgo, I mean, it just kind of never ends. Venus is going to, you don't see it here, is going to come into a sextile. And there's a certain amount of responsibility that we feel in Cancer to really provide nourishment for our children. And so we can again take this idea of a child and utilize it symbolically and archetypally as the representation of the new unity from duality. And part of that in the Cancerian archetype is that when we have a space in which this life is allowed to grow in the womb of either our own spirit or our own lives or our own ideas or mind, however you want to look at it. There's the practical responsibility of fulfilling the needs of this quote unquote children, whatever it is that's growing, even if it's the personality that is in fact growing within this container of a family. Eventually, you get to a point where you have to recognize that you have to actually take care of the nourishment needs of that which is growing. And Venus is making that it's about bringing it back around and be like, what do I need to do to feed myself and my own emotional growth? What is it that I can grab from the very earth itself in order to nourish and sustain that which is growing anew and is still vulnerable, right? It's still vulnerable, which is why the protection is needed in Cancer. This sextile to Venus or Vesta in Virgo, again, we can invest this energy into an opportunity to deepen our intuition, deepen our sensitivity emotionally and psychically, the Cancer energy. Deepen it in order to access inner guidance. This sextile allows this feminine aspect with Venus and Vesta to come together and to activate each other, right? In order to go deeper, to access inner guidance. And part of that is when we actually take the time and the energy to nourish and sustain that which is growing, especially in terms of our resources, our relationships, and our projects with Venus. What we feel in our senses. So this is a beautiful connection. Everything about today feels like, we have to really get down to the house cleaning and really start to take care of our own front yard here, in our own our own microclimate energetically. Now, especially now with those Syrian activations, they came through and just flushed so much out and showed us exactly what needed to go. And now we actually have to do it. So the moon comes around, is in a quincunx to Chiron and Aries today. This Chiron is so interesting. And of course, this is a moment to adjust ourselves, because for as much as we are trying to utilize all of this, well, to be the type of person that can step in and pull it together when necessary, based on all of the work we're doing on ourselves in that first half of Virgo, the characterization, becoming aware of who we could really be. This quincunx, again, with Chiron and Aries, there's so much frustration. I want it now. I want it to happen. I'm frustrated that the potential I feel within me is not actualized yet. And it's very immature, and it's very adolescent, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that Chiron's making it so much more of a, point of contention and wounding, that we will have to adjust ourselves with this quincunx, because we have to be mindful that, we can't utilize this very charismatic, powerful ability to step into our power to then, feed the wound. Right? That's a definitive possibility. So this quincunx, these things don't match. And so we need to adjust ourselves in this moment. And I think what's going to really help is coming into the next phase here, which is the quincunx to Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, and at the very same time is in a trine to Uranus. So this relationship of the square between Uranus and Saturn are still very, very palpable, very strong. They're still in the same degree, and it's still reverberating and having its impact on us. And so the moon will be in a trine to this, really, really giving us access to our root power, right? It's root power that leads to seed success, right? And so when we plug into all that came before us, all of our own past histories, and we have to think about this multidimensionally too. We have to be able to wrap our heads around that it's about connecting to not just the past in a linear way, but to connect to all of these experiences that come out as relevant on a multidimensional level. Past lives, different versions of ourselves, ancestral things, they're all happening at the same time. Our ability to connect to the power of the tradition that we are, growing from, this very, there's a lot of traction here with Uranus, that if we can really just, again, it's all about plugging into the natural world and like natural resonance, and being able to plug in there, rather than getting thrown around or staying up in the head. And the thing is that the quincunx is absolutely going to challenge that with Saturn in Aquarius, because for as futuristic and about cosmic coherence that Aquarius is, it's still an air sign that has to do with the intellect and our ability to intellectualize these things. But it comes through more of a third eye type of activation with Aquarius, but it's still in the mind. And so, which is funny because, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So there is an essence of using the mental faculties in order to organize ourselves. And the quincunx here, is really, again, while we are feeling that narrow pathway of our own evolution as a species, and it's very, very, it's the matrix we can't get around, which is Saturn, right? The 3D, stable, solid reality that is getting more constricted every day as Saturn is moving retrograde. This quincunx, again, we will have to adjust ourselves, because for all of the ways that we can plug into where Saturn is and recognize this, we still have to plug ourselves. Again, we still have to, it's like we still have to be in this reality while at the same time acknowledging that there is another part of us that is already there, if that makes sense. Now, Saturn being retrograde, like I said, is making it more obvious. The constriction of the tunnel is becoming more obvious. It's the walls closing in around in some ways, and while that's happening, we are each individually and emotionally and very personally having to really tap into our family tree, so to speak, wherever that tradition has come from, that strengthens us, that allows us to, and it's the root system, right? That's what Virgo represents, the function of the root system. Cancer is the stabilizing through the roots, and Virgo is the convalescence, the actual action of using that root system. This is just an uncomfortable arrangement, but the trine to Uranus is, again, what's really supporting this ability to plug into our root system, like to activate our root system, to utilize our root system, because Uranus is just like, you can revitalize yourself, but just plugging back into the natural pulsation. And while that's happening, yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable, because at the same time you have your 1 foot in 3D and you have another in 5D, and you just have to feel it out, and we will find ways in order to do that. But I suggest really looking towards this trine with the moon and Uranus, because it may be disruptive, but what we are finding here is that if we are stabilized and we use our root system, we will ride the pathway of awakening, I would say, despite all of the disruptions. And that disruption is continually being manifested here, or at least certainly activated by this square with Saturn and Uranus. So this is really the astrology for today, guys. And so there's a lot of work to do, but I think that at the same time, there is so much support for this process if we just tap into it. Now we have third quarter square tomorrow, or first quarter square tomorrow, actually. First quarter square of the Sun and Moon in late Gemini and late Virgo. So we have these two Mercury ruled positions where the Sun and the Moon are going to come square each other. A crisis in action. What are we going to do after what? A new moon in Gemini. Well, this is really, it's really about the ability to, again, let go and to accept that bankruptcy is not a terrible thing, and in fact, it's a way to liberate ourselves from the past. And at the same time, though, the tension here is, do we allow for that to happen, or do we, well, let's just look at it, shall we? Late Virgo, 28 degrees Virgo. Yeah, the sheer power of personality in times that call for decision. Whoo, boy. Yeah, and again, remember that these squares, especially with the moon, it's just like this one moment of just like, I feel that tension. I feel that conflict within me. Do I like take power? Or do I realize that by letting go of the weight of it all, is really where I'm able to be liberated. So those are just, and those are moments, right? Those are moments that we're going to experience that are going to give us something to work on. So let's look. So the one thing I wanted to bring up before we move into the card reading is that, oops, come back here. I want it to just be so you can see it. So Menkar, this is where fixed star or asteroid Ceres is right now, is at fixed star Menkar. This is the nose of right here. I know that I'm having a hard time getting it to, that's why. Hold on. Ta-da. Yes, here's fixed star Menkar. This is at the nose of the sea monster, right? And the thing that I want to, and this is where asteroid Ceres is, right? The goddess of the grain and agriculture. She gives nourishment, sustenance. She provides. She's a provider. and she goes through her own, she represents the cycle, right, of the yin and yang cycle of the seasons of nature and what it provides for us, right? There's a time to go in and contract and do the work and be fallow, and there's a time to grow, and as a result of that we then get nourishment and sustenance. So she is in Taurus right now. She is still in a conjunction within a 2-degree orb with Uranus right now. So this is really strong as well. And I would say that Uranus is probably starting to get into closer territory to here. So fixed star Menkar is the nose of the sea monster. And the thing that really strikes me is that it rules the thyroid gland. And the thyroid gland in the human body, I can't speak for any other animal because I've never studied it. So it could be the case for all mammals, for all I know. In the human body, the thyroid, it's a gland, right? It releases hormones into your body, and the hormones that it releases control your metabolism. You remember I talked about digestion and assimilation. So Ceres is at this position of Menkar that rules the thyroid, right? The throat chakra. And a lot of people have issues with their thyroid, which probably comes down to, I would say, very basically communication issues, a struggle with being in alignment with the natural energy and being able to express it, allowing it to move through you. This is why chanting and singing and praying out loud and expressing oneself, even verbally on their own, you know what I mean? Like just having some means to do so, singing, allows for the expression and this energy to be circulating and moving. But the thyroid is responsible for metabolism. So when this is in fact impacted in any way or is not strongly, if there is some sort of disruption here or some sort of functional issue with the thyroid, then you have, their metabolism is one of the things that is impacted, right? So our ability to digest and assimilate and to detox, right? Our metabolism allows us to detox. So Ceres, we have to be able to allow our transmissions to move through us, whatever they are. We have to be able to allow this part of ourselves to be strong, to be healthy, to not shut ourselves down. Because when we do that, then our it's directly connected to this digestive fire. And when we don't allow this space to be open, then we are not able to have proper metabolism. And without proper metabolism, we can't actually assimilate what Ceres represents ultimately, which is our food and our nourishment and sustenance. So she's in this position today, and there's a lot of test of character being revealed at this degree of Taurus, but and Menkar being the nose of the sea monster, right, leading the kraken to its next meal, right, being the aspect that is leading the whale to where it needs to go for sustenance. It's leading us there, and it's coming through expression. It's coming through a healthy thyroid that allows that energy to move through us any way that it needs to. Like I said, it can come through all types of different variations, but the important thing is that when this is resonating, it's actually at the Schumann, right? The throat chakra frequency is the Schumann resonance. So all of these things are kind of intertwined now in terms of being willing to speak your truth, allow this throat chakra to be powerful and open and healthy, because otherwise it impacts your ability to really stoke that metabolism and or overdoes it, right? That's hyperthyroidism, where your metabolism is too high and you're assimilating things too quickly and you're not holding weight on all those things. So I just want to bring the attention to this connection between the thyroid, the expression that is associated with the heart or the throat chakra, and our digestion and metabolism. Those things are connected to each other. And when we shut down, then we are also shutting down our ability to stoke that digestive fire, which means then we can't fully assimilate what it is that we think is nourishing us or intend to nourish us. So let's get into the reading now that I've talked plenty. I'm curious how people are doing. All right. Oh, I missed you too, Meg. Sorry, I just popped over to the chat and just saw you. I've missed you too. I really value being here so much. All right, guys. So we're going to take this off. We're going to go, oops. I'm going to move this block over here. And here it is. Our reading for today, my friends. All right. So we're seeing that there's more reversals. And here's our blue heron, right? Make a stand for what you believe in. That's interesting. Here's our panda, sacred space. That's a very Cancerian thing as well. All right, let's start here. We have... Here's our 9 of Cups, but it's reversed, right? The happiness that's reversed as our causal factor. So in a lot of ways, there's Jupiter in Pisces, right? Jupiter is about to go retrograde. And I would say even the fact that it is direct right now in Pisces is actually, for some people, is expanding on this beautiful, watery, happy place. But for others, not so much. And this is really speaking to... either you're expanding on this within you or there's a lot of resistance to it. And where you find yourself is really going to impact how the rest of this unfolds. But what I will say is that there's always a risk of self-indulgence when it's reversed. And there's a temptation to enjoy the happiness, but not reflect on what keeps it there, right? That's a really important thing. We have to actually... The cycle ends, 9 to 10 and then back to the ace. And so if we just stay here and we just keep allowing our cups to be filled without actually doing the spiritual work of reflecting on it, then we're not really going to get the full benefit of this place and what it can really do for us. And so there's always a potential to be vain and complacent with a reverse 9 of Cups, like just being overindulgent and self-indulgent in this happiness. So, and if it, as I said before, you can also have it be an experience of being, this happiness within you, which again, with that opposition with a Virgo moon as well, you can feel that there's a real potential for this to be a reflection of this internal process as well, that we have this strength within us, that in fact there's always support and guidance in times of crises, and that it might be difficult, but we can reflect on where this happiness comes from and what it leads to. But I think too that this also can be easily connected to a lack of happiness or a vanity or an self-indulgence as a result of, I would say as a result of where Jupiter is at in Pisces and what it's expanding on, which is that you can't hide anything. You can hide within the nebulous region of Pisces, right? Just like the fish is hot, so, supposedly hiding. It's not that they're hiding, you just don't see them if you're not in the water. But as soon as you're in those waters, there's no hiding what's there, especially if you're a pro or you have some, you're a shapeshifter and you're able to, be the whale, right? Be the sea monster in some ways. You can go into these spaces and know, then nothing is hidden, right? Because it's all, there's a signature there. And I think that this 9 of Cups is definitely a reaction to people not being very happy at all with where Jupiter in Pisces is, because they are having to contend with that nothing is hidden. So, and every lie will be revealed. That's just all there is to it. Like, that is the nature of the universe. There may be entropy and there's chaos, but there has to be a balance for that too. It's just the nature and law of this universe. So I think there's a lot of resistance to this, and people being self-indulgent to a certain extent, but also too that we can really feel this internally. And when Jupiter goes retrograde on the solstice on the 20th, I think that that is exactly what's going to be happening in terms of the expansion on these aspects will be so much more internalized, and we can kind of in some ways get ahead of the game right now. So as we move on here, the Prince of Wands. Oh, here we are, the heart of the matter. Don't forget that the Mars is in Leo. Actually, the rest of this horizontal axis is about Mars and Leo. So the Prince of Wands, right? We have, this represents the transition from Cancer to Leo. We did have that over the weekend. We have Mars that has made the transition now from Cancer to Leo. The Prince of Wands, the heir of fire. You can see he's got a lion pulling the chariot, right? Leo, the lion. Mars, Mars, for as much as it's in itself fire, and the prince is the air. This has got a lot of Mars and Leo attached to it. And then even further into it, we have the Seven of Wands, which is also Mars and Leo. So this is a hot storm filled with impulsive action, right? Endless courage and tenacity. The prince in particular has this juggler or trickster quality because it's about the mind, and it's rather swift, strong, and violent. This is at the heart of the matter today. And so this represents actual people, either us or other people in our environment, that this energy is, there are people embodying this archetype right now at the heart of the matter. And we have to be mindful of what this really represents, because it can easily flip sideways. This Prince of Wands, like I said, it's a hot storm filled with impulsive action. And when you have a happiness or self-indulgence or a vanity on the causal end of things, reaching this, you can see where it could possibly, like, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. Mars and Leo is going to do something about it and is very confident in their position. And in fact, it is very regal and royal. So now we turn to our energetic polarity, which is a totally different story than what we just looked at. The divine physician. So there's a lot of harmony in this reading today. We have 3 6s. Ooh, 3 6s. And then the up in the air, number 18, breaks it down to 9, which again is part of this 3 6 9 energetic dynamic here. So there is a lot of harmony. There's a lot of this investment that the 6 represents numerologically, right? There's harmonization. There's the the star that represents the 2 trines or triangles superimposed on each other. It's about being able to utilize the harmonious energy to create something, to harmonize with something. So the divine physician is pretty self-explanatory when we look at it. He's got the caduceus on his chest. He's got this really like Jesus type of thing going on. He's got the bucket, the well with the water, right? He is able to access the waters of the soul. He's providing the Reiki healing with this woman right to her heart chakra. And it's important to realize that belief and feeling lead to thoughts and words, which is all energetic. And this frequency and vibration is going to manifest reality, right? We've heard this over and over, and it's to the point where you kind of gloss over because you've just heard it so many times in certain New Age circles, especially. It's starting to ripple out into the mainstream, which is important because when everybody understands this and uses this properly, excuse me, I'm talking too much. Thank you. Then we realize how much power we have to not only heal ourselves, heal other people, heal the world, which is a very Virgo type of energy again. The actual process of healing. Healing is no different than any other manifestation technique. Beliefs and feelings turn into thoughts and words, and that is energy that manifests reality. So at the heart, we have this Prince of Wands, this really impulsive, fiery energy, but the energetic root here is really about connecting into this the potency of our own emotional. Of our own emotions, right? The potency of it for the healing process, and how much it is part of this process. And so we we are receiving healing, we may be offering healing, and we may just be rooted energetically in this place of connection with how powerful and how potent our emotions really are in order to bring about some sort of healing or within ourselves and other people. And this is the root here. This is our energetic polarity. This is where we're gathering our personal power. This is really important because this is part of the cleaning house, right? This is part of cleaning house, is that we have to be rooted into how absolutely responsible we are for keeping a purified, energetic, emotional system in order to be able to be a healer, in order to heal, right? In order for all of us to heal. It's only going to come through this process. So we have to be willing to draw our power from this place, either be this person. And you, like I said, he's got the caduceus on his chest, right? The sign of Mercury or Hermes, right? And also the sign of medical, the medical profession, the healer, right? It's about how powerful manifestation is through the mind, and the emotional aspect is it's the container in which we create within. So it's important that we are able to connect and be rooted here as we move up through the heart of all of this as this very impulsive, very tenacious energy at the heart. And then as we move, we take this divine physician energy, and by the time we get up to our conscious awareness, there is a sense that we have to trust what is happening. It's not all knowable yet. And boy, that frustration keeps being brought to the surface every day, more and more. And there are elements that are unknown because they're not knowable right now, right? Time is a dynamic system, right? There are fixed points in time, of course, just like there are fixed nodes in a network. But how we get there and which direction and which pathway to get to those nodes is always changing with our free will and our conscious participation. Sometimes we can't know because things haven't been decided yet. There are players that haven't made decisions yet. There's aspects that if we did know them, we wouldn't follow through. Right? And so we have to trust and not push so hard. And this rooting into the divine physician energy and allowing that energy to move up through a very tenacious and courageous Mars and Leo, our conscious awareness can come out into this aspect of it's up to God, right? And not to say that we don't have things to do, but there are things up in the air that we have to just trust, and time is required, and cycles of time are required in order to finish the process, finish the cycle. There, like I said, there are fixed points in time, and there are timelines that are way more probable statistically based on everything at once, but not everything is knowable right this moment. And I think this is important to keep in mind because where we are headed here, Valor, right? Mars in Leo, the 7 of Wands, right? We're going to take some hits. We're going to take some hits. And when it's upright like this, it's very much about we have learned a lot and we are able to utilize our courage in order to fight back, right? When it's reversed like this, especially with Mars and Leo right now, we're going to really get attacked, and there's going to be people facing some serious hardships, and it may be the result of our own doing if we cannot rein in and channel appropriately the fire in this tenacity within us, right? And we also may feel hopeless too. That's the other thing. But based on everything that I'm looking at here, especially this causal factor of the 9 of Cups reversed, like not happiness, sadness, or self-indulgence, right? Like just being completely hoarding things emotionally, or just feeling completely empty. I think that's another. All the cups have spilled over at that point when it's reversed, and then we face this like really strong energy, impulsive energy at the heart of the matter. Somebody, us, or somebody we know, we could be observing this right now. It's going to lead to a very like I said, it is Valor and it is Mars and Leo, but the reversal is showing that it's either going to be, again, an internalized process of of facing these hardships and facing them with courage and utilizing everything we have accumulated up to this point, right? All the wands are behind that front wand that has no staff on it, by the way, has a bunch of notches taken out of it, is crooked. This can be an internalized process. And I think that that's one way to absolutely read this and experience it. And another way is that, there's going to be some really, feeling hopeless, facing some really strong hardships, like feeling attacked and being attacked, which will then just trigger this loop, right, of a Prince of Wands that keeps like being impulsive and destroying without like a really mature perspective on all of this. But it's really where this energetic polarity is going to make the most difference, I think, on how this is really expressed within us. Because we have to trust, we have to tap into this reality here that we are manifesting it through the potency of our emotions. And sometimes we can, our emotions aren't potent if they're getting spilled all over the place. Like we can't actually use them and project them and direct them if it's spilled all over the place. So that's something to consider as well. So there's some guidance here to lead us on our way. Six of Forces. So the waterfall is just showing us how absolutely powerful our emotions and feelings really are. It'll shape our landscape. It will manifest our reality. Remember this. And it's another six, right? So the six as the divine physician, the Six of Forces, which is showing us the incredible amount of energy behind the momentum of our spirit and our emotions and our feelings, right? It'll shape the landscape, and we can use this as a healing potential. And on top of that too, well, I wouldn't say on top, for the Panda, create a sacred space for yourself. This is a very Cancerian thing. Create the space, create the container, to have the boundaries in order to really be able to concentrate the potency of our emotional and feeling-based energy, because that's what creates, that's what manifests, that is the magic, right? It comes from the waters within, that Cancerian energy. So we have to create a healthy container and a sacred space in order to do that. And we can't do that if we are all over the place, or we are, not being very hygienic with our energy, right? And so we have to create a sacred space in order for this to actually unfold. And so that's a personal journey of what that looks like or feels like. But it's very... is part of the cleaning house, okay? And the blue heron, this goes back to that throat chakra and the thyroid. Make a stand for what you believe in and do what feels right. And that has a lot to do with expression, right? And be willing to certainly be real with yourself. And if you come to a conclusion that's different than where you stood, I mean, there's nothing wrong with transmitting that either and making a stand for that. We change our minds all of the time. And there's nothing wrong with that either. Again, Orion starseeds, this is where you are really able to set the standard here and really guide people, because this is a natural place for us, is to be able to stand in our truth and not emotionally get pulled into the fact that something is mirroring that. And again, when we know that a lot of stuff is up in the air, that doesn't mean our values and our ethics are up in the air. That doesn't mean the expression of who we truly are is up in the air. It means that we acknowledge that not everything has the cycle has not fulfilled itself quite yet, and that we trust in our own ability to manifest reality. And maybe that is exactly what's happening. But the minute that we start letting the potency run, to leak everywhere, or the minute that we let somebody else trigger us and use that and exploit that emotional energy for another agenda, then we aren't making a stand for what we believe in and doing what feels right. We are getting caught up in somebody else's game, but trusting and not needing instant gratification in this whole process is going to be really supported, I think, by where the blue heron really, what it represents is that throat chakra. And that's not to be like, you should just be like, challenging everybody and just telling everybody how much of an asshole they are or anything like that. You know what I mean? That's not what this is. This is about being in resonance with the natural world and the rhythm of the planet. And that allows then, that is expressed through the healthy throat chakra. That is what resonates with the Schumann resonance of 7 to 8 hertz. And something to consider here, right? Up in the air. Even though it's up in the air, we're still working, aren't we? And this is a waxing moon in Virgo, another 6, a 6 of keys. Now we're really talking about nuts and bolts, aren't we? With the physical material reality. We're still working on ourselves and we're still putting the time in. So it's time to clean house. It's time to organize your studio. It's time to get all of the extraneous shit out of the way so that you can focus on creating and sculpting and bringing into form your personal, your allowing truth to move through you and to be created in this form, right? Just because the big picture is still up in the air doesn't mean that we don't have aspects to commit ourselves to in working on ourselves, right? Because we have to acknowledge that the more we allow our emotions to be pulled around and triggered and constantly be exploited, the more we are manifesting somebody else's reality, what they want. And this is very easy to do with a Prince of Wands and a Mars in Leo right now, right? That energy can be pulled into a direction that has nothing to do with what we want, but we think it does because it's triggering our anger and our frustration. Oh my God, these things are happening. Can't believe it. And it's just like they want you to feel that way. So take that energy, realize that it is the substance of magic and will shape your entire landscape and put it in a sacred container, right? Don't waste it. Don't waste it like that 9 of Cups that's being wasted on vanity and self-indulgence. Really use it. Really use it and value it and be grateful for it and respect it and revere it. Because it's going to be what allows us to move through a very difficult time of more of whatever it is, hardships, feeling attacked, feeling hopeless, all of the 7 of Wands energy that is reversed. So I think I'm going to leave it there, my friends. It's been interesting to come back after being gone for a couple days and to get myself, get myself together. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you made it this far. If you're interested in a reading or energy work to support your process, we can really get into the depth of your chart, your starseed origins, and see what's going on, because this is really gives people very specific direction and insight into the areas of their lives that these experiences are really going to show themselves. And when you realize that, then you can be prepared, you can have a conscious awareness and be a conscious co-creator instead of being dragged around by the energy that seems like you have no control over, because we always have control over ourselves. So you can do that through catalystenergies.net. That link is in the description box below. You can find it Catalyst Energies on Facebook and Telegram, also in the description box below. Let's see, anything else? No, I think that's it. I have gone on long enough. So wonderful to be back. Thank you guys. There are changes coming. There's going to be more options available for you in terms of signs, getting more specific with the signs and this whole sign astrology, and also getting into specifics with specific starseed origins and creating space to really go deeper into those different symbols and archetypes, so that we can really harness what it means to be a Syrian starseed, be a Lyran starseed, be a Pleiadian starseed. It's not enough to just be like, I come from these places, I'm a starseed. We have to be able to harness this energy because we chose to bring that stuff in at the time we were born. And it's essential that we understand that, because the time is now. And there's so many people who still haven't woken up to what they are here to do, and are not being intentional co-creators necessarily. So that's what I'm here to help with and to guide through. So guys, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow for the transmission. God bless. Bye.